Hey, I'm Jason Bowman from ArtSpeak Creative, and today I have an awesome honor and privilege to be with Dr. Isaac Frère of Rū Tampa. Isaac, you have been in the music industry, PhD in economics, currently a visiting professor of economics at Florida Atlantic University, online influencer, some might say. But you and your wife, Vanessa, are launching a church with a very unique vision to use that music, art, culture, and community really to create a place for everyone to explore faith and discover their purpose. Thanks for being here, Isaac.
Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, glad to have you. And I hear you grew up as a pastor's kid, but then jumped into the hip hop scene. And then now you're shifting to a church planner. Man, tell me more about your background here and how you felt called to ministry.
Yeah. I fell on ministry. I fell in love with Jesus and then fell on ministry in response to that. I grew up in a wildly Pentecostal Haitian church. I was the PK of the church. So you know what that means when you're the pastor's kid of the church. It means you do everything, right? You're doing the sound, you're the janitor, you're the engineer, you're the producer, you're the choir director. You're also singing tenor, alto, and soprano. I was doing all of it at my father's church. So I was heavily involved in church and church culture. The thing for me is I was serving the church and I was serving my father, but I wasn't really serving Jesus. I wouldn't say I had a functional relationship with Jesus. Didn't really know Jesus at the time. Kind of fell into a faith crisis probably right before going to college. And then I was like, okay, I think what I want to do is I want to do my own thing once I get to college. Got connected with some hip hop guys and got heavily involved in the hip hop scene. So it's kind of just this thing of I'm just falling from one thing to another, just trying to discover who I am, what the purpose of life is, and why I even exist, and what am I even here for?
Yeah.
And so I thought at the time, that getting into hip hop and making money and girls and drugs and all that, that would be it. Like that, I want to enjoy life. I want to party. I want to, if I can experience that, then my life will have meaning. Like my life will matter. That's what life is all
Yeah.
about. And of course, reality hit me pretty quick once I got there. So yeah.
Yeah, I end up with a whole lot of nothing, right? I have a similar background. It wasn't the hip hop scene, but some similar life choices there. Hearing your background though, and our team doing some interview and getting the background and the story, they tell me about a nightclub story
Oh
specifically, and wanted
goodness.
me to ask, tell us the nightclub story.
Yeah. So my claim to fame, if you want to call it that, I met Jesus at a club.
Okay.
It was kind of this, I'd reached my end at that point. I'd experienced a whole bunch of success in the hip hop scene, but at the same time, I was doing a lot of back end stuff. And I thought that what I was missing was fame. Like that's the only thing. At that point, it's doing all right, making more money than a young dude should make. And I was, doing a lot of things that a young dude shouldn't do. And I've kind of experienced everything at that point that I would have said or told myself would have given my life meaning and purpose.
Well,
But I
yeah, I
found
mean, I
myself
see the list
out.
here of some of the people you've mixed for, and anyone watching would recognize some of these names, right?
Yeah, I got a couple of names. I got a couple of
Yeah,
names that are not.
like there's just we'll just say that let me the biggest.
The biggest, wow. I've worked with DJ Khaled, I've worked with
Yeah,
Rick Ross, I've worked with Lil Wayne, I've worked with a bunch of
lots
dudes.
of them. Probably
Um,
on and on.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And so yeah, I got to the club and I'm in VIP that night, and it was probably one of the biggest. It's probably one of the biggest parties in Miami. And this was '06. Man, been a minute, but it was around '06. I think it was '07 actually, but either '06 or '07. So I'm at this party and I walk in, and of course I'm about as low as it gets. I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm frustrated, near suicidal, just
Mm.
completely lost because I felt like the only thing I was missing was fame and credibility, and you know that's it. People don't know who I am, so once people know who I am, then my life will matter and it'll have meaning. And I got a glimpse of that at the club. So I get to the club. Again, these are the biggest names in like hip hop and culture. They're at this club and I'm in the VIP section. I'm hanging with the biggest names. And then all of a sudden there was this section of the night where they start dropping all of my music. And so they're dropping all of my music, they're shouting me out in the club, and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is it. Like this is it. This is what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
That lasted about 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden, right there in the club, something just began to wash over me. It was like the club was going in slow motion. And I began to see the room. And it's like the whole club just got quiet. And I saw the room and I saw all the folks in the room and I began to see them. And now, of course, I've got hindsight. So I can say I saw them the way God saw them. Like I
Wow.
saw the brokenness in the room, I saw the pain, I saw the hurt, saw all of that. And so of course, I'm overwhelmed by that, but then I began to see God's love for these people.
Mm.
And it was like this love for, this affirmation love. And he's just, I just felt the love of God, the grace of God just washing over these people. And I'm like, what is happening? And all of a sudden, God starts pointing me out. And he starts pointing my brokenness out. He starts
Wow.
pointing all my issues. And I go on this, like, literally this journey. And the Lord was just kind of revealing to me, even throughout my life, how he's been with me along the way. And then he said and this is what I heard. And it's the only way I can explain it, but I heard it. And he said this is all it will ever be. And I literally just froze right there. And I literally sunk into the corner of VIP. And all of a sudden, I just began to experience the Holy Spirit, just began to experience the love of Jesus. I was like washed away by his love and his grace. So I'm in the club, like they're thinking I'm throwed or I'm on some stuff. And by the way, I didn't have any pharmaceutical assistance before walking in, because I always say that. I always preface by saying that. But I'm in this corner and I'm just experiencing the love of Jesus. So I get in the car, my manager's talking, can't wait to drop him off. I get to the corner after I drop my manager off, and right there on the spot, I give my life to Jesus. I jump out of the car and I tell Jesus, these are the words I told him at the time. I was like, Jesus, my life is no longer mine. It's all yours. You can do as you will with it. And that was my moment. That
Wow.
changed everything for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, dude, that is awesome. I was I'm so excited to hear your story. There's like I mentioned, there's some parallels to my own. In 1997, I was headed to a party at about 2 in the morning with a trunk full of drugs, and I heard the name of Jesus over the stereo, and it was a band making fun of him. And this guy in my car, he hits repeat on the stereo, and I just thought, why make fun of Jesus? Who cares? And I'm like, no one makes fun of Genghis Khan or Julius Caesar. Who is Jesus? And I asked that one question, who is, and I didn't know. I did not grow up in church. And I'm still on that journey. So hearing how Jesus
Wow.
interrupts your night at the nightclub with his love and grace just reminds me of how he interrupted my whole life with his love and grace. And
Yeah.
put us on a different path, man. And now here we are. Our paths are crossing because you're getting ready to take your background in music and art and culture and launch Rū Tampa.
Rū Tampa.
Tell
Yeah.
tell me about Rū. What's a Rū? Are you
Yeah,
Tampa?
yeah, yeah, man. So when we got into church planting, we didn't know what church planting was. After I'd left the hip hop scene, that whole thing, gave my life to Jesus, I cared nothing else but to just reach people for Jesus. Like if Jesus could pursue me at a club, then that just compels me to pursue anyone who's far from him. And so we started an online ministry, and then that turned into an online movement, and it turned into a movement of groups. And so we have this movement, and I had a group of pastors who came alongside me, and they saw this thing happening in South Florida, and they're like, hey, so what are you actually doing? I'm like, man, we're just reaching people for Jesus, and we're discipling this group of people who don't have a church, and we're engaging them on mission for the city. And they're like, okay, so how is that not a church? And I'm like, I that's a good question. I guess it's because we don't have a service on Sunday. That was like my best answer at the time. And so it was the first time I'd ever heard the term church planting before.
Okay.
And they said, hey, you should really consider church planting. And this was, of course, back in now '08, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, okay, cool. I'll check it out. I'll learn more about this whole church planting thing. So anyway, fast forward, I got plugged in with a church planting network down in South Florida. It was a cohort. that I was participating in, and these group of pastors were in the circle and we were praying, and all of a sudden the Lord just put Tampa on my heart. I'd never been to Tampa, had no context for Tampa, had didn't know a single person there, had no friends, no relationships. The closest I ever got to Tampa, quote unquote Tampa, was going to Busch Gardens. Like that was my closest Tampa story. And so here I am, like all of a sudden just weeping over the city that I'd never been to. So I
Wow.
called my wife and I told my wife, yo, I got to go to Tampa. She's like, what's in Tampa? I said, I don't know, but I got to go. And so we drove there, came back, and I was convinced that at some point the Lord was going to call us here to do something, either plant a church or start a movement, whatever it is. But the Lord wants to bring Jesus to the city, and he wants us to be a part of what he's doing here. And so fast forward, we kicked off our online ministry. We're continuing to push that forward. And then sometime 2 years ago, the Lord just put on our heart, hey, he began to stir our hearts once again for Tampa. And so we're like, okay, let's start praying again. And we talked to our team. Finally, we took a step of faith and made the move here. Once we got here, I was just praying over the city. And the vision that the Lord gave us for the city was to see the city filled with people, filled with the Spirit of God. And so I was like, okay, cool. The word Rū is actually short for the word Ruach, which means spirit. And so we said, all right, we're going to call this church Rū Tampa because our vision is to see the city filled with people who are filled with the Spirit of God. And so that's how we came up with the name. We wanted the name to incorporate the name of the city because our vision is for the city. And Rū is kind of a conversation started because Rū is simply short for Ruach or
I
spirit.
love it. And good
Yeah.
choice on not going with the full Ruach Tampa. That would just, you might see it's just well, there's others out there. But man, I tell you one of the things I love that the vision to see, the city filled with those who are filled with the Spirit. I like that. But I think my team was impressed, and maybe my own story, having grown up totally not connected to any church. But so we're inspired, my team and myself, when I read your story and look into it, about your heart for reaching those that are unchurched or dechurched in the Tampa area, and creating a place where they feel like this is a community and less of an institution. Would you tell me about your heart for just reaching those that are outside of the church?
Yeah, yeah. I love how you mentioned that. It's about belonging. It's about creating a place for people to belong. I think one of the things that's important, at least for us, and we've always brought precedence to this, is that if we're going to be a church for the city, then we need to love the city. We're not here to change the city. We're not here to impose anything on the city. We just want to dwell in the same way that Jesus dwelt
That's good.
among us. We just want to dwell. And so our heart has always been, let's just be present in the city. Let's be a presence. Let's not just perform for the city, but let's just be present in the city. And so how do we create presence? And these are the questions that we're always asking, like, how can we be present in the city? What are the opportunities for us to be present in the city? And so one of the things we realize is that art is a way of bringing people together. Music is a way of bringing people together. The creative arts, people connect through that and through those means. And so we have a heart of cultivating a creative community, which is why you'll find that where we're going to be planting is in the Ybor City, Tampa Heights area, which is really where the arts community is for all the poets and performers and artists and singers, musicians, producers. It's this rich, there's so much rich creative history in Ybor City. And the other thing is that, if you ask anyone, if you want to know where Tampa's going, just go to Ybor City. It's the heart of the city.
Okay.
And so it's where people meet, it's where people gather together. So we want to be a church that's present in the city rather than the church that simply invites folks to come to our show.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
So
And well, I mean, I've got a whole team of creatives, and you've met some of them. Tell me about what the process, because you're getting ready to plant this church, and I love that somebody who's so passionate about the arts and culture, those are similar things close to all of our hearts. But that you would lean into our team and our process. I'd love to hear how that process went, how you found us, and how you found the process as it began to lay out in front of you.
yeah, so when we had our online ministry before, the challenge was always finding the right person to help us build out our brand identity, like
Mhm.
how we want to look, how we want to communicate. I mean, it was literally maybe a 3-year journey for us to like put it all together. And so coming this time around, as we're planning on planting this church, all I was thinking to myself was, we got to find the person who's going to help us expedite this thing, because if we're gonna launch and we're gonna get this thing rolling, we can't afford to like fall on our faces for 3 years to get this thing right. And so after we'd gotten the vision for the church, we knew who we were and what we wanted to do. I started looking around, man, and it's funny because I was all over, like I was scouring about the internets, checking out all different types of companies and guys who do branding, church branding. And the thing
Sure.
is that in the secular world, it's sometimes challenging because you'll find folks who are really creative, who have that sort of bent and can speak that kind of language, but
Mhm.
they don't have the language of the mission and the church. And so
Right.
it's kind of hard to reconcile that, because it's like, okay, I want you to understand who we are, but it's hard when you haven't really stepped into that space. And then on the church world side, there's this sort of what would I say? It's very templative, right? Like the way I've noticed, like branding, companies, they tend to be very templative in their approach and very templative in their creative expression. And we knew we're kind of doing something different. It
Yeah.
doesn't fully fit. And so anyway, I got on the phone with Libby, and we were talking, and man, the light bulbs just turned on. It was like, oh, okay. Oh, wow. These people actually, wow, we're speaking the same language. These people get it. Okay. Let's do this. This is
Come on.
It didn't take long. I mean, we had one conversation, and I'd hit up Gabe, who's our executive guy, and obviously creative dude. We all have just a bunch of weird creative people. We're bohemians out here. And I was like, yo, I think we found the person. And he's like, you sure? I said, I'm telling you, we found the person. And I recorded the conversation. I said to him, he's like, oh yeah, that's the person. Let's roll. Let's go. And so the process was amazing. It was absolutely, I mean, it was smooth. We had a
Oh,
good
cool.
time together. It wasn't one of those things where you felt like, oh man, I felt drained coming out of it. I really felt nourished and nurtured as we
Cool.
were going through it. It was like, okay, help me put it. The thing with creatives is sometimes we have this thing in our mind and it's hard for us to articulate it with words. And so finding someone who kind of thinks the way you think and is able to extrapolate what's going on in your mind and
Yeah.
to say, all right, I think what you're saying is this. It's like, yes, that's it. That is what I'm saying. So it was just great. There was so much synergy there. There was a you could say unity of heart in what we were
Yeah.
trying to do, and it was a pretty smooth process all the way through. It was great.
Well, I love that what you're talking about is the heart and the messaging and that overlapping obviously with our team and you, and then that's really our process. Let's get that messaging right that overlaps with your heart and what you want to see happen in Tampa and those that dwell there. And you're going to dwell there with them, and then that overlap is just a natural connection. Then you're not trying to force something. That being said, then we move into visual identity, and you mentioned it being smooth. I think we pitched one logo to you, and that goes back a long ways. For some reason, when we have one logo, sometimes that we're like, we love this. If we put it in a deck of three, they'll never pick it. So we're like, I think we had no doubt. We were like, no, man, this one's good. We just need to get this one. Let him deny this one if he want. You picked it. That's the logo. So that's not, that is very smooth that we were able to dial in. Your stuff looks gorgeous. I mean, I don't do any of the design. I'm not over any of that, but we've got a great team. And man, I think even just meeting you for a little bit, it just hopefully communicates that same message for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because we kind of thought that's what the process was going to be, where we'd get multiple logos and then we'd
Yeah.
have to pick one and then go through multiple iterations to like tweak the logo as we go. So it's funny because in our first conversation with the creative team, um, so I was always thinking, like I had in my mind a certain idea for a logo, but I just thought it was like completely left field, right? Like it just doesn't look like anything I've seen before. So I was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Like if people are really gonna connect with it. So I just kind of kept it to myself. And then when Bria kind of mentioned, hey, what if we just make the bar the logo? If you, I don't know if that conversation is recorded, but Vanessa, my wife, she was with me as well because she's always the person who says whether or not I'm out of my mind and crazy. So I always have to keep
Yeah.
her next to me to make sure. And she turns around, she looks at me, I look at her, I go, oh my goodness, they got it. Like, this is what we were thinking about. So like, yeah, do that. We run with that.
That's awesome.
And so it ended up working out, man. It was great. It was so easy, man. So smooth. It was awesome.
That's cool. Now, I've been asked to ask you if you want to tell the sushi place story.
All right. So I had
Very-
okay, all right. I had a temporary design. And so anyway, I'd run with the design. The team was always kind of like quiet about it. And I'm like, hey guys, it's temporary. We're gonna find a company, they're gonna make it right. I don't know what to do yet. So we're just gonna roll with this. And so um, our team was like, one of the guys from our team was like, Isaac, it's actually it's a pretty ugly logo. And I'm like, I know, but it's not it. He said it looks like a sushi place. It looks like it's like a sushi logo for a sushi place. And I'm like, okay, all right, now this is horrible. All right, let me find a company to go and handle this. So anyway, I kind of cast a vision for who we are, what we're looking for. And I was like, hey, by the way, I have a draft of a logo, which I'd like you guys to take a look at. You can piggyback off of this if you'd like, or I mean, you can junk it if you'd like, but I'm just gonna throw
Yeah.
it at you. And so I dropped the logo into the Zoom meeting, the conversation, and you should have seen the faces like on the screen. They all just kind of froze and they were just staring at it. And I was like, if anyone says, this is what I told him. I said, if anyone says that it looks like the logo to a sushi place, I'm gonna lose my mind. And the entire like chat room just went crazy. They all just lost it. And I was like, yeah, it looks like a sushi logo, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. All right, I get it. All
Oh,
right.
well, it doesn't now, and
Do
it
you
will
think?
do. It doesn't now. I love, and I think it pays homage to covering the city of Tampa with that love of Jesus and the spirit of Jesus. And we'll post a link here when we post this video so that people can see and link to what you guys are doing. And I know you've got a launch date for September of this year, but God's already at work. You guys are already connecting with people. Tell me about what's going on right now through Rū Tampa in Tampa and what your vision is for the future.
Yeah, so we're hosting interest meetings right now. We meet at a spot not too far from downtown, walking distance from downtown. We had our first worship night on Easter Sunday. And man, I mean, we were blown away by the response. We were at full capacity. We had to send folks home on Easter Sunday, it's like one of those things where it's like, wow, this was greater than we could have ever imagined. But we also felt a certain way about the fact that we had to send folks home. But we had almost 300 people show up to our first
Oh,
worship gathering, which was nuts.
yeah.
This Sunday we have our second worship gathering, so we're meeting once a month now. And
Okay.
so this coming Sunday we have our second worship gathering. We got a bigger space this time around, but it looks like we might be at capacity for that
Already.
space as well.
Wow.
So just it's been an exciting time having a couple hundred folks connecting with us, and having almost 100 people showing up to our interest meetings on a weekly basis to
Yeah.
get plugged in and to learn more about our church. It's really exciting, and I think what's really exciting about it is that we're seeing the people we wanted to reach,
Yeah.
and seeing the people who want to reach who we're looking to reach as well. And so it's really exciting, man, to see what's happening right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's super. That is exciting. Hey, what would you tell somebody that was thinking about working with a team like ArtSpeak for their branding or helping them launch their church or grow their ministry?
Yeah. I would say from my experience, ArtSpeak gets it. They get it. They listen. They're not here to impose themselves at all. They're here to just listen and to help interpret what is already in your heart. ArtSpeak's going to draw out things in you that you didn't even know were there. And man, I mean, I blindly recommend ArtSpeak for any type of design or branding need. You guys are great. You guys were awesome. I'm actually kind of sad that our project is over because I don't get to like talk to them on a week or a monthly basis. I mean, every conversation, everything we've done up to that point, it's just been so life-giving. It's been so great. And I'm trying to bring them onto trying to bring your whole team onto my launch team because man,
Come on.
it'd be awesome if we could do that. But yeah, they said that they're enjoying their time with you guys over there. So I don't know if that's going to
Yeah.
work out, but just love
Well,
you guys and really appreciate the work that you guys do.
well, thank you for that, Isaac. We appreciate it. And it's been such an honor to have worked with you and be a part of your story and be able to interview you today and help tell that story. I think, that's part of our goals. We want to design as you and not just for you. We want to help tell your story. I personally would love to extend an invite. We've got a couple online communities I'd love to interview you for live. And
Okay.
we've got one for church planters called The Next Wave, next wave community. I would love to set up a time to have other church planners that are a part of that community hear about your path, this whole story. And then I also have we have an online community for church creatives that I think would be very
Oh, nice.
interested in hearing your past and how you're now going to use that art and creative to reach those that are. I love that that you've actually specifically targeted the epicenter of culture and art in Tampa. I think I've said for a long time, the future belongs to the artist, and the artist creates the future. So I think you're really smart to target that demographic, not maybe a bunch in that culture looking for the next cool church to go to, but I do think if you can connect and dwell with and be with, man, you're going to tap into the future of all community.
Absolutely. Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Isaac. We just want to say thank you again for being a part, letting our team be a part and partner with you and your team as you launch Rū Tampa. And we'll make sure that everybody here, as we wrap up, will have links to be able to follow along with your journey. And if they're in the Tampa area, I already want to figure out how I can get down there in September. So. Or at some point, just to hang with you and see what God is doing through Rū Tampa. But thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.